Hey y'all, it's K-Bird Tweets, and this is Peace, Love, and Baseball. Welcome back to Peace, Love, and Baseball. I'm your host, K-Bird Tweets, and today's episode is all about the very unique and special relationship that we call battery mates in baseball. And joining me today for this special festive episode during Valentine's Day week are my very own battery mates, Jonna from the Babes podcast and Suzy of Bourbon and Baseball. So gals, thank you for joining me. Jonna, pitchers and catchers report this week. Has it hit you that baseball is finally here?
Yes, because for me, the Super Bowl, that always signifies, I always think of that as this is New Year's Eve for baseball.
Yeah.
I love that the minute the Super Bowl is over, our baseball people will be tweeting it's baseball season, it's our time. So yes, I'm very aware. I'm very excited.
I could not agree more. The Super Bowl to me is the party that the NFL throws, to signify the start of baseball season. So Suzy, are you glad that you can stop pretending or trying to like football now that it's finally actually time for baseball?
Well, I don't know. I feel like people are amused when I ask where the ball is all of the time. So, that I can just continue that into baseball season. No, my husband will also be very thankful that he no longer has to answer my asinine questions. Poor man. He's just like, can I just watch a football game without having to answer 4,003 ridiculous questions that I've already answered them all? No. This is your punishment now. I'm very sorry.
Well, to put it in perspective for our listeners, the Super Bowl game is still happening, but we are here. So we would tell you who won, but we do not know yet. And it's very much back and forth, pretty close right now. But we are here talking about baseball because we've got our priorities in order.
Absolutely.
So yes, we are going to talk about a lot of things today, including what it means to be a battery mate, both on and off the field. Mm-hmm. We are each going to do a feature on a specific pair of battery mates that we admire in Major League Baseball. And we're going to pick our dream battery mate team from players who are currently in the league that have not played together, but we think that they might be a good match. So let's talk about what a battery mate is, because if you're a baseball fan, surely you've heard the term, but according to thebaseballjournal.com, battery refers to the pitcher and the catcher, and it is a term used to describe the two players as a unit. You still hear it these days used by announcers. They use the term when announcing the starting lineups or telling fans about position changes, and each player by himself is called a battery mate. So the term battery was first used in the 1860s. Obviously, it was in reference to the battery of weapons and artillery power used in war. But battery is an old school term that isn't used much in reference to the game today, but it still will make its way into broadcast and baseball discussions. The pitcher and the catcher act like a real battery since they touch the ball the most during the game and they allow the game to progress. The catcher gives signs, or in these days uses the pitch comm to signal to the pitcher, who proceeds to deliver the ball based on what is communicated to him from the catcher. Typically, we know it can happen a number of different ways these days, but that's how it all started. If a pitcher and a catcher are not on the same page, that's when things can get crossed up, as they call it, and this can obviously lead to a number of problems. Can you imagine if the pitcher is, or the catcher is calling for one pitch, expecting to get it, and then the pitcher throws a different pitch? He's expecting a 78-mile-an-hour curveball, but instead he gets a 90-mile-an-hour fastball. Look out. Not going to create a great dynamic. So very important for them to be on the same page. A successful battery always means a more successful team. Not every pitcher wants to use the same catcher, and that's a little bit about what we're going to be focusing on today. But pitchers only really have two options, right? Typically on their team at a time. But as we will discuss, they often make specific requests to, make the battery as fluent and working as possible. I actually found this article from Bleacher Report back in 2010 that was articulating the importance of the dynamic between battery mates. And I'll be interested to hear if you ladies agree with this, but it says the intimate interplay between a pitcher and a catcher is a unique kind of relationship, unmatched by duos in any other sport. So here again, we're going to highlight why baseball is elite. Sure, it's important for a quarterback to be in sync with his receivers, and a point guard's acute awareness of teammates on the court can make for exciting no-look passes and alley-oops. But nowhere else is such a profound alignment of mindset between two players so meaningful as that between pitcher and catcher. Throughout the entire game, pitchers rely on their appropriately termed battery mates to make proper calls behind the plate and develop a coordinated strategy. Both players must have a similar understanding of the situation and come to an unspoken consensus on how to respond. They're thinking about everything and have to be on the same page about everything, and from how many runners are on to how many outs there are. What did the hitter do in his last at bat? What did he do on the last pitch? Who's on deck? Are we going to pitch around this batter? It's crazy to try to comprehend everything that these two players have to be in sync on. So before we get into specific battery mates that we want to talk about today, I want to ask you both, what is one key characteristic that you have found to be important in your battery mate, whether that be personal or professional? Because I think a lot of the things that make relationships good for all of us often translate into these relationships that these players that we admire have on the field. Suzy, what is like one characteristic, something that comes to mind that you know is a highlight for you?
Definitely patience. My husband, bless him, is a very patient man because he's got to be, because he deals with this on a daily basis. So, definitely patience. Like, I literally always tell him, you know what you married. Like, I don't know why you're mad, because you knew what you were getting into. So, but definitely patience is probably the highest quality that he has, especially dealing with me.
Jonna, what about you? Is there something that you can pinpoint?
Yeah, so I would say trust is a big one. I had a lot of like shitty boyfriends before meeting my husband, and there was just like a huge difference in having someone that like trusted me and I trusted him, and that's huge. That translates to baseball, obviously. There's one other that I just want to like give a call out to my dad, because as I was growing up, like both of my parents worked. They were both full-time working parents. And what I loved is that neither of them, like there wasn't like my dad did just the outdoor chores and my mom did just the indoor chores. That was not my house. Everybody did everything, and like just did those dirty chores that they didn't want to. Like my dad would do the laundry. My husband now does the laundry. Like those are things I think I looked for in a partner, because my dad wasn't like tied to his like manly outdoor chores, like he was fine with doing the indoor stuff too. And yeah, I think, I don't know, that could probably translate over to baseball somehow too.
Oh,
Gotta do the dirty work. Everybody's got to pitch in.
Yeah, it's a mindset. It's an attitude, really. And I couldn't agree more. My husband and I have talked many times about how both of our parents represented that well for us. There wasn't like designated roles. And it definitely shows up in the way that we are in the workplace, even, of just willing to do what needs to be done, and, never thinking you're above anything, or that anything defines, how you can help or how you can participate. So I could not agree more. That's a great point to bring up. I was thinking about this, and kind of similar to you, Suzy, I thought about the one thing that I've recognized in my husband over other relationships I've had that really stuck out to me, and that both of you have, that makes all of this work as well. And that is being a good listener. And that doesn't mean not talking and not sharing your own opinion just as much, but it means that I feel really heard, and it adds a lot to the conversation, whether it's on a podcast like we're having right now, or I just need to, I am someone who processes things out loud. I'm a very audio driven person, and so a lot of times, my parents did it for me for many years. They still do sometimes, but my husband is somebody who is just a great sounding board and is great at listening. And I think feeling heard is a really valuable thing in any relationship. And yes, I can imagine all of these things that we just mentioned: patience, trust, being willing to, be on an even playing field, and being a good listener, good communicator, are all things that battery mates look for and rely upon in each other. So let's talk about some of our favorite battery mates. Jonna, would you like to go first and tell us about the duo that you have selected today?
Yes, I went way back. I chose who is hands down the best battery mate the Yankees have ever had. Whitey Ford and Yogi Berra. They together pitched 212 games. In those 212, like, this is the craziest stat. 24 shutouts in
Wow.
212 games. Yeah.
That has to be the most, right? I would assume that's probably the most for battery mates.
That has to be. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, Yogi Berra though, like, I think he could have been a great battery mate to anyone. He was phenomenal and very underrated. And in fact, he caught Don Larson's, who, like, earlier on, before Whitey Ford, he caught his perfect game in 1956, and that was the only perfect game that's ever been caught or thrown in the World Series. Is the 1956 World Series. So fast forward to 1999. This was right after Yogi Berra came back to Yankee Stadium for the first time in 14 years. He had a falling out with the Steinbrenner family, wouldn't come back to Yankee Stadium, wouldn't come near Yankee Stadium. They mended things. He came back for the first time. They ended up doing a Yogi Berra Day in July to just kind of honor him and, like, honor him coming back. And so to do that, they had Whitey Ford throw out the first pitch to Yogi Berra. And what happens day? What happens that day? David Cone pitches a perfect game to Joe Girardi.
Magic. Oh,
yeah. So
amazing.
I feel like Yogi Berra, he could have been anybody's great battery mate, but that was my my favorite. I did want to call out though that Mariano Rivera and Jorge Posada pitched 598 games. They pitched in 598 games to one another, and that's the most among any battery mate in baseball ever.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much history among these pairings of people. And it's weird because baseball is obviously such a team sport, but at the same time, it can be very individual. And, to some extent, it's why players, like Nolan Arenado, even when he was on the Rockies, like, was still very motivated and, just focused on his own numbers. And there are players that can know that they're not on a team that's necessarily going anywhere in any given season, but they still have those individual stats that they can be, more or less completely in control of, at least on one side of the ball. But the pitcher and the catcher are just so reliant on each other. And it's interesting, some of the things that I've been reading about, that the catchers actually tend to hit better when they're like battery mates are on the mound as well, that they work really well with. So that's just another thing that brings up, the vibes that I love to see and really believe in.
Interesting.
Suzy, do you have a pair we would like to tell us about?
I do. And I was really trying to tie this into the Astros. But our catcher has been Martin Maldonado for the last 2 years. And I can't do that. And a lot of our pitchers apparently loved throwing to him and preferred throwing to him. And it just drove us all insane. So I'm not going to tell you about Martin Maldonado and Justin Verlander, because that's not a thing we do. I'm going to tell you, however, about Blake Snell and Gary Sanchez.
Love it.
I was floored when, even during the season as it was happening, well, I'm sorry, Gary Sanchez? Gary Sanchez, from the Yankees, Gary Sanchez? And sure enough, he bounced around a little after the Yankees traded him to the Twins, and then the Padres got him, and apparently it was like magic. I don't know. So in 2023, the Sanchez was claimed off of waivers by the Padres, and caught Blake Snell for 18 straight games, like 18 straight starts. So Blake Snell's record was 11-3 with an ERA of 1.29 and 147 strikeouts with 18 appearances with Gary Sanchez as his battery mate. And literally, like, obviously, like, preferred to throw to him. There was a quote that he said, given to, where was it? Given to The Athletic, I think. Yeah. I've always heard about him offensively, but I love him, Snell said after beating the Cubs on June 5th. He blocked like a 97-mile-an-hour fastball in the dirt. I threw a curveball and it hit the grass and he blocked it. I mean, I don't see the problem. Even calling the game, we had a game plan, we executed. I even put a lot of trust in him. Like, what do you want? Like, you tell me. I trust him on that. He's smart. And so the fact that Gary Sanchez is, potentially riding the coattails of, Cy Young, even though I don't know, like, Blake Snell's still not signed and Gary Sanchez signed with the Brewers. Like, I don't know, Brewers, you need
Blake Snell,
you need
to the Brewers.
You need a starting pitcher, right? Like, Blake Snell, let's go reunite over there. But I love that his career kind of like was reinvigorated with the Padres, and love that Blake Snell loved throwing to him. So
that is a really good, interesting one to think about because of how Blake Snell has been so hit or miss and up and down season over season. So he is one that I think is a great example of like who he's throwing to. I could easily see it making all the difference. And
I find it more fascinating because Garrett Cole kind of refused to pitch to him. Like Kyle Higashioka was personal catcher. So there was a little like probably lack of trust in Sanchez after that. I think it's really freaking cool that Blake Snell just leaned into it and like gave him his full trust. I think that's really awesome.
It's a great point that, just because they work well with one person doesn't mean they'll work well with another. And it doesn't mean the skill set isn't there. It's really more a personality thing or, a style thing when it comes down to it.
Yeah.
Yep, for sure.
Well, I have to tell you both and all of our listeners about our iconic battery mates from the St. Louis Cardinals, none other than the men here in the frame behind me, if you're watching on YouTube, Yadier Molina and Adam Wainwright, who have been fixtures of not only the St. Louis Cardinals, but of Major League Baseball for the last almost 20 years. And we're about to start the first season that we will see without Yadier Molina or Adam Wainwright in a Major League Baseball uniform since June of 2004, which is pretty crazy to think about.
Wow.
Yeah, I actually didn't know this, but Yadi and Waino started as battery mates in AAA Memphis for the Cardinals in 2004. They actually made 8 starts together before Yadi was called up in June of 2004. And Yadi was not the first to catch Waino in the majors. When Waino made his debut, it was in the top of the 9th inning on September 11th, 2005 in relief, and Yadi had already come out of the game. So the first catcher to catch Adam Wainwright in the major leagues was Mike Mahoney, not to be confused with Mike Matheny, who was a longtime catcher and fixture for the Cardinals. But Mike Mahoney, who made only 46 appearances at the Major League Baseball level, he was the first to catch Adam Wainwright in the bigs. And the first time that Yadi caught Waino in an MLB game was on September 25th, a few weeks later, 2005, where Waino threw a scoreless relief inning. All was right with the world, though, when Yadi did catch Waino's first MLB start on April 6, 2007 in Houston. He threw 7 innings, and they got their first win against the then NL Central Houston Astros. So to put that in perspective, this is before baseball, Suzy. So yes. I'm sure you still know who Craig Biggio is. Craig Biggio was Waino's first
I don't know.
as a starter.
Who's that? I don't know.
Those were, the hot days of the NL Central Houston Astros. So So on September 14th, 2022, this is, the most recent headline that Yadi and Waino have made together. Yadi was 40 years old, Waino was 41, and they made their 325th regular season start together, which passed the Tigers' Mickey Lalich and Bill Freehand to set the new Major League Baseball record for the most common pitcher-catcher batteries in the modern era, so since 1900, and that is according to the Elias Sports Bureau. Yadi was quoted after this saying, "Hopefully it will never be broken. It's just a great feeling to be at the top of the list, and to do it with Waino, a great human being. It's amazing." The other battery mates in the top 5 of starts and wins worked together in the 60s and 70s, which I think is important for perspective here, because back then starting pitchers would make as many as like 45 starts in a season. And that was before free agency works the way that it does now. So it's just more and more rare to see these kinds of franchise players that work together for so long, the same way that you were talking about, Jonna. And it is very likely that it will never be broken. It seems like one of those untouchable records. I thought this was interesting information for perspective on it too. If you limit the field to the divisional era, so just since 1969, Waino and Molina's closest competition is Steve Rogers and Gary Carter of the Expos with 270 starts together. If you limit it to the wild card era since 1995, still quite a while ago, it's Tom Glavine and Javi Lopez of the Braves who have 232. So not even close. Like they have almost 100 more together than anyone else in that era. Among other active battery mates in 2022, when they broke the record, the closest would have been the Cubs' Kyle Hendricks and Wilson Contreras, who is now on the Cardinals and caught, win number 200 for Waino, but they had 105 starts less. 105 starts, which is less than 1/3 of Waino and Molina's. 105 compared to 328 that they finished with. It's wild. Here's what I was talking about, Jonna. On when Molina hits, he hits better when Waino starts. Out of his 337 hits in Wainwright starts, 336 have come with him also appearing as a starter. One, he was a pinch hitter. No other catcher in Major League Baseball history has recorded more hits in games started by the same pitcher. And 3 of Molina's 9 career multi-homer games have come in Wainwright starts. So weird, including the first, which came back in August of 2007. So back in that first season that they worked together as starter and catcher. Wainwright does a lot of things better when, Molina is behind the plate. He made 15 of his 16 career postseason starts with Yadi catching, and that ties them with the Yankees' Mike Mussina and Jorge Posada for the 5th most prolific starting postseason battery. That's not taking into account their work together in 2006 because Waino was a reliever and closed out the 2006 World Series. Waino has only thrown to 17 other catchers in his career, and those 17 combined accrue for only 412 and a third innings, which is about 16% of his career total. So the other very large percentage of the time, almost 84%, he was throwing to Yadi or Molina. Waino has a 3.21 career ERA with Molina, and he has a 4.06 ERA with the other catchers. I think that's a pretty substantial difference. So they ended the 2022 season and Molina's Major League Baseball career with 328 starts, 213 team wins, which is also a record that they hold as a battery. I'll wrap things up about Yadi and Waino here with a little quote from Adam Wainwright, because, of course, one of the other amazing stories to follow is their friendship. They spend holidays together, like one of the last Thanksgivings. Waino's whole family went to Puerto Rico to spend Thanksgiving with Yadi or Molina. And Waino is quoted here saying, "He has been more than a friend and a teammate to me. He has been a brother to me. The guy I have gotten so close with. How fortunate am I to throw to the best defensive catcher of all time in my career? I don't want to imagine life without him. I never even thought about it. He's my catcher." And did you guys see Budweiser they have the Best Buds campaign, and they actually did they did a Yadi and a Waino can for their 325th start, and they had them up on the presser table.
Oh, that's adorable. No, I did not see that.
I didn't only buy them in St. Louis, so I couldn't find them to buy them, but how iconic is that to have their faces on Budweiser cans next to each other?
Oh,
So
that's so cute. Love that. Does Wayno's kids call him Uncle Yachty?
Oh my gosh, I hope so. Yachty also has quite a few kids, 4 or 5 as well. It's why actually he does not want to come back and work full time in Major League Baseball right now, is because he still has young kids. So
Makes sense.
yeah, no, we need more Yachty and Wayno Instagram content now that they're officially off the field. Hopefully they'll have more times to post more collaborative family photos for us, because
Seriously. Aww.
For sure.
So before we talk about our dream battery mate teams, I just wanted to tell you about some other battery mates, pitchers, whether it be like pitchers with personal catchers or just because the thing is, like, Yachty wasn't like Wayno's personal catcher. He was just the everyday catcher, right? And like Kisner actually, I think, caught Wayno more in 2022 because Yachty was out for so much of the season with an injury. But Suzy, similar to your call out on the Padres, Yu Darvish and Victor Caratini were a recent pairing that worked really well together.
Mm-hmm.
Clayton Kershaw, always throws to Austin Barnes. And then, as you mentioned, Jonna, Garrett Cole and Kyle Higashioka, who just got traded. So who do you think, who is Garrett Cole going to throw to this season? Anyone special? Anyone different?
It'll be interesting. He's good with Jose Trevino. But he got, like, Austin Wells is so new. I don't really know, but I feel like they started to really like gel too. So.
Oh, and Trevino was on the injured list for quite a bit last season, right?
Yeah. And so that's like one thing that I think people aren't recognizing with Garrett Cole's Cy Young chase is that he was pitching to 4 different guys last year. Like, he literally 4 different guys, and 2 of them being from single A. They played single A, double A, and triple A last year. So
wow,
that's freaking impressive.
Yeah, I definitely never even thought about that.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting. He'll probably pitch to Trevino, but we'll see. Yeah.
Well, another pair that's been separated this upcoming season is Lucas Giolito and James McCann, who were starting together for the White Sox and had expressed being, particularly fond of their pairing. So we'll see if Giolito is missing his guy over in Boston. And then Greg Maddux was notoriously known for preferring to throw to Eddie Perez with the Braves. And this one, I don't know how I missed, but John Lester and David Ross were notorious battery mates with not only the Red Sox, but also the Cubs with 2 different teams. David Ross, what a guy.
I saw that too. Crazy.
And then Roger Clemens and Jorge Posada. Okay, everyone loves throwing to Jorge Posada. That's clearly a thing that I learned from this. Yeah. And then going back a long ways, Jack Morris and Lance Parrish with the Tigers. Apparently, you probably know this, Jonna, there was a pitcher named Catfish Hunter who paired up with Thurman Munson of the Yankees. And then Christy Mathewson and Roger Brennahan with the Giants. Tim Wakefield and Doug Mirabel. Tim Wakefield, good example. A lot of times, like, the knuckleballers are the ones that, at least back in the day, tended to prefer one catcher over the other, since they had a little bit more specificity in the way that they needed or preferred to be caught. And then Tim McCarver and Steve Carlton are another pair that joined forces on 2 different teams with both the Cardinals and the Phillies. We've got Luis Tyant and Carlton Fisk with the Red Sox, and Lefty Grove and Mickey Cochran with the Athletics. The Athletics, that's what they need, is another dream battery mate team to, like, bring them back around. Who's it going to be?
They need something. I don't know.
That's really how they should start their new team, wherever they eventually end up. But anyway, let's talk about who we think currently in Major League Baseball might pair up well and make a battery mate dream team. Suzy, are there any 2 players that you're like, man, I would really just like to see these guys work together?
Like I said, I'm really trying hard to tie this into the Astros. No, just kidding. But honestly, though, I really think that our our new young catcher. I say new, he shouldn't be new, but our catcher, Yainer Diaz, and Hunter Brown, I think, have a very good long career, and hopefully, fingers crossed, together. Because last season, when Hunter Brown came up, Yainer Diaz was his quote unquote like personal catcher for like the first 3 starts, I want to say. And we all were super excited because he threw really well to Yainer Diaz. He had thrown to Yainer in AAA, and so they were comfortable with one another. And in like June, so this stat comes from June. I just want you to know. In the 6 games behind the plate, Hunter Brown is 3-1 and holds a 2.62 ERA and a 77 OPS plus. When Martin Maldonado is behind the plate, Brown's ERA is 4.63 and his OPS plus jumps to 101. So we're all screaming like, let the kid throw to Yainer Diaz. Like, what are we doing here? And so I'm really hoping that this next season that will actually happen and that trust will be built with, the other pitchers. But if I were not to have an Astros homer perspective on this, I would really love to see like Adley paired with. My heart hurts to say this, like my soul hurts to say this, but I have to say it because I have to. I would really love to see Adley and like Garrett Cole like put together.
That's my answer.
Was it?
Yes.
I'm so sorry, Jonna.
That's
my
crazy.
goodness. I'm so sorry.
No, don't be.
Okay.
Don't be. No.
That's hysterical. But I mean,
thing.
like, really,
they're 2 of the best. Like that.
Yeah.
Like, how could that not be a good battery mate?
I think that would be like the best pairing ever. So barring that, we'll go like Corbin Burns and I don't know. We'll see Corbin Burns and Adley this season.
Yeah.
So hopefully, well, I say hopefully that takes off. Maybe I don't want it to take off. We shall see. I'm like,
no, we do not.
AL, hold on.
Well, it doesn't hurt you too much, Suzy, until later on. So you can admire it from afar, at least in the first half of the season. Jonna, what was it about Adley and Garrett? I mean, obviously they're both elite, but their personalities seem kind of similar to me too. Did that read to you?
Yeah, I feel like they're both just workhorses. They're also both like really studious. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Garrett Cole is between every inning, he's on the iPad studying, and I think like that would make them a really good match because I feel like Adley's kind of that way too. Yeah, I really admire both of them. I would also take Will Smith, either of the Contreras brothers, or JT Realmuto. I think any of them paired with Garrett Cole would be a cool thing to see.
Yeah, JT is another one that I just think would be an elite battery mate for a lot of pitchers. It seems like he could kind of get different young guys. Like I would love to see JT Realmuto. No shade to the Mariners catcher because I don't know enough about him, but I would love to see him like with like the Mariners young pitching staff. That's my like team pairing there. But I am kind of on the other end of the spectrum personality wise because I picked 2 players that just missed each other, Marcus Stroman and Wilson Contreras, because they both have like kind of the opposite kind of like super hype, but like reined in focused energy. And I think Wilson has been around long enough and kind of honed it into a very like focused, productive energy that he could kind of rein Marcus Stroman, who has that same like hype and star power, but is not as established in the league yet, and I think the best is still ahead of him. And I'm actually very, I think he's a great fit for any team, and I think the Yankees fans will learn to love him on a different level coming into this season because I do think the best is yet to come from him. And I don't know why I was thinking about him, and I was just like, you know what? Him and Wilson Contreras I could see them hitting it off and being like really fun friends. I would definitely be at a Super Bowl party with Marcus Stroman and Wilson Contreras together. That I
can see
can say
that.
for sure.
Ooh, that party would be spicy. That
Yeah.
party would be very spicy. I think that would be fun.
I
That would be
like
a
that
lot of fun.
answer.
Well, as we're trying to pair everyone off here during Valentine's week, because it's very important and we're trying to get everybody together for spring training, there are still some very notable free agents that have not signed yet, have not made their commitment. And Valentine's week may be the time to do it. I freaking hope so. But Jonna, what's your take on that? Like, do you think there's a particular reason why we're still waiting for all of these guys to sign, or what's it going to take to just get them to do it?
Yeah, it's really interesting. This year has just been so weird. I think at this point, Bellinger and Snell particularly are just like holding out. That's my take on them. I don't know why though that the Rangers haven't just nailed it down with Monty. Like it's pretty clear, and it has been for a while, that he's not going probably anywhere else. So I'm not really sure what the holdup is there, unless there's something with Boris.
TV money.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
I don't know.
TV
What about
money.
you, Suzy? Is that you think it's all comes down to all those moving parts?
Yeah. I think if the Rangers had the assurance of whatever TV money that they had last season or whatever, I think that it would have already been locked up. But I mean, Jordan Montgomery is living in Boston right now, and it really feels like if Boston just gave that any sort of decent offer, Jordan Montgomery would be like, cool, yes, I'll sign. But I'm waiting until they sign Trevor Bauer, and that Netflix documentary is gonna just hit. So that's my hot take. I'm telling you that's what's happening.
Netflix documentary will be canceled.
That's what's happening. You like because really and truly
a nice feel good lovey dovey episode.
Well, why wouldn't the Boston Red Sox sign Jordan Montgomery? Because we know they have the money, so it's got to be some sort of like controversial thing, especially with this like Netflix documentary coming out. I'm just saying. Okay, that's all I'm saying.
Maybe he doesn't want to be a part of it. I could see him. He's not a very flashy guy. Maybe he doesn't want to be on camera that much.
That's right. You're very right. You're true. I didn't even think about that. That didn't even cross my mind.
He wants to, sign a special contract that he doesn't have to be on camera, so he doesn't have to compete with Tyler O'Neill in his crop tops.
That's true.
I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Like, were you surprised that it's the Red Sox that they chose to follow? Like, I know they're a very historic franchise, but
absolutely, especially in this season that they're like back-to-back seasons of last place, and you're like, why the Red Sox? I mean, because literally when that came out, I know that I did the whole like tilt my head to the side like dog war thing, because the Reds, like out of all of the teams, like the Red Sox, like if you wanted a story, like go interview the Diamondbacks. Like what's happening here? Angels?
Yeah, any idea who's behind it? Because Ben Affleck is the biggest Red Sox fan, and I could see him having some involvement in this. Like they gotta stay relevant.
That is an interesting thought. I just wonder how long it's been in the works too, because that could be a part of it. The Red Sox have been very successful over the past 20 years in perspective, but
I think I read in one of the articles that it's been in the works for like 2 years.
Okay.
But even so, I'm like, you're not getting paid. No, apparently the Red Sox organization, none of the players, like it's just to try and get people to love the game. And I'm all, is there some sort of script we're missing? Like, are the Red Sox going to flip it and all of a sudden become good? Because
yeah,
I don't know. They're putting all their eggs in Lucas Giolito's basket and hoping that him and Brian Bayo can just ride off into the sunset. I don't know.
Well, we'll see if they acquire Victor Caratini, or I'm sorry, not Victor Caratini.
They're not gonna. I'm like, they're not acquiring Victor Caratini. There you go.
They're like, no, can't happen. No, if they will pick up James McCann, halfway through the season, if Giolito really needs some help. But yeah, I don't know. That wasn't
didn't James McCann wasn't he on the Orioles last season?
I am not sure. He probably got traded away when Lucas Giolito did, because that's really like the reason that he was with him, or that he was with them. Oh yes, he was on the Orioles. You're right. And he is still with the Orioles.
I was about to say, because I want to say that like he had one of the more expensive contracts on the Orioles for one of the lesser good people. English is hard. Golly.
Yeah, which isn't saying much for the Orioles these days. Yeah, his average salary is actually over $10 million, so that would be high for the Orioles.
Yeah.
We'll see if they will be willing to part with him so he can get back with his battery mate if the Red Sox are going to go on a heater in 2024 with this Netflix special. But that will be fun to talk more about as we get deeper into the season. All right, well, as we wrap things up here, the last question that I want to ask you is a question that I feel like we're all going to get asked a lot here in the coming month as we lead up to baseball season. But right here, right now, I want you to pick them out of obscurity, and I want you to tell me who are the two teams that you want to see match up in the 2024 World Series. Jonna, pick them.
Yankees, Dodgers.
Oh, gross. The worst. And everyone who's not a Yankees and Dodgers fan is like puking off to the side while Major League Baseball is thrilled.
Right?
After we missed out on Yamamoto, like I don't know what other National League team I would want to pick. Like I kind of want to stick it to him. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Suzy, how about you?
You know, I have to say Astros Dodgers or Astros Braves. Like we have to have a rematch of any of the last World Series, but I just either one of those just doesn't make me happy. Like, can we go? I'm like, can we play the Diamondbacks? I would love to play the Diamondbacks. That'd be great. But yeah, no, I think Astros Dodgers have a repeat of 2017 and just put all of that to bed. I mean, it's not going to be put to bed because baseball, but
okay, that would be fun, and
how
that
about
would be a time when
I in the ALCS and we put that to bed.
They'll have to beat the Yankees first. We'll just let it all play out again. And if the Houston Astros and the Los Angeles Dodgers played in the World Series, I would definitely be pulling, I mean, at least this year for the Astros. And that would be a first for me. I'm not against it, but I'm going to pick, I want the Cardinals to make their comeback to greatness.
Right.
Do I think it's going to happen? No, but I want it in my heart of hearts. And that's what this episode is about, is what the heart wants. And the other thing I really want is for the Kansas City Royals to play them in the World Series, because Will Smith is on the Kansas City Royals.
I mean,
and I just want to keep that narrative going. And the Royals obviously have been very unsuccessful as of late, but they have made some sneaky moves. And do I think they're going to be World Series contenders? No, not realistically. But in my heart, I would love to see that. So Cardinals, Royals. The heart wants,
come on now. We all know that Will Smith is getting traded at the deadline. Like we all know that. Come on now.
Or, my heart will shatter and my dreams will be crushed by July 31st.
But hey, if he wants to come to the Yankees, that's fine. We'll take him. We'll take him at the deadline. We have a million bajillion catchers, but it's fine. Oh, he's not I'm thinking of the other Will Smith. God.
There's too many Will Smiths.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
Will Smith, the left-handed reliever,
who has 3 World Series rings in a row. So as soon as he signed with the Royals, we were sleeper pick for sure for the World Series. But here they come. If we're going with sports or scripted, the Red Sox are going to make a run for it, and so are the Royals because they have Will Smith. Well, ladies, I can't thank you enough for joining me, not only today, but in all the work that we get to do together and being great battery mates. Jonna, will you tell the folks where they can tune in to us and follow you on social media?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Twitter at 90s Yanks Kid. You can follow us, Babes on Twitter at Babes Pod, and on Instagram at Babes Podcast, and we're on all of the streaming platforms.
And if you're listening the day that this episode comes out on Tuesday, February 13th, we are going to be live this evening on Tuesday, February 13th at 7 p.m., where we have a very special interview. So I'll put that YouTube link in the show notes as well. So if you want to check it out, you can just click the link in the show notes and head on over. Suzy, where can they follow you and find us at Bourbon and Baseball?
You can follow the show Twitter at Bourbon in Baseball. And my personal Twitter, I don't ever use that, so I'm not even going to give that to you. But Bourbon and Baseball, you can find the podcast on Apple, Spotify, anywhere that you can listen to podcasts. Bourbon and Baseball Pod on YouTube, and I think Bourbon and Baseball Pod on Instagram as well. And so that's a little bit more rated R than normal. So just be prepared.
Yes, make sure you have your headphones on if you're listening with the kids, or maybe just, don't listen to it if you're super offended by certain 4-letter words. But we have a lot of fun over there, and
Definitely.
we are there weekly covering every possible thing you could want to talk about. But I will be here next Tuesday, back with your more regularly scheduled programming at Peace, Love, and Baseball for this year. We'll be back to our team feature episodes next Tuesday. So make sure that you're following along. You can find me on Twitter at KBirdTweets. You can find the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, maybe you're watching along on YouTube. If you are, make sure you subscribe, give it a thumbs up, give us a nice comment or review if you feel so inclined. And I will see you next time on Peace, Love, and Baseball.